UFC 298 is coming up this weekend, and today, guys, I'm going to be breaking down every fight on the card with timestamps, by the way, if you were interested in hearing my take on any particular fight. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I am your guy with too many YouTube channels, and welcome back to another full card breakdown and prediction video, guys. Before we get into it, little quick note. I apologize for the lack of content this week, guys. I am back on the grind. I got some new gear, got a new PC, got a new webcam here, which is tracking me, which is very fun. So I'm still playing with the position of it, so apologies if it's like a little bit too zoomed in this video. I'm going to be playing with it. I'm going to see what works best, but right now I'm focused on getting some videos out. I'm looking up at myself to make sure it's still tracking me okay, so you'll have to deal with that a little bit, but we're back on the grind, guys. I'm excited to talk about some fights. Hear me out. I would love to know what you guys think down below in the comment section afterwards. Let's get right into it for today. Starting off the card, we have Andrea Lee versus Miranda Maverick. Now, guys, I don't know why, because I'm not too high on either person, to be honest with you, but man, I'm a little bit excited for this fight. I'm a little bit more excited for this fight than typical for the UFC flyweight divisions over here, right? But anyways, so typically I was going to say that both fighters are coming off of an absolutely horrible performance, but Miranda Maverick, she ended up getting a winner last performance, but recently she has not been looking well. I understand that she's pulled together a few wins, but nothing really stood out here. Nothing really, in my opinion, like she hasn't really looked good at all in these performances. Andrea Lee, though, on the other hand, 13-8. Living up to the name over here. She is looking worse and worse as time goes on. She's coming off of a horrible performance, but granted, that's to Natalia Silva, who's actually pretty good for the division. Now, this is tough because both girls have a little bit of a strength in the wrestling game, but if you ask them to do anything else, there's not much they can do. I'm going to lean to the side of Miranda Maverick because, again, at least she has been putting together some wins. She's 26 years old. There's room for improvement there. Andrea Lee is 13-8, probably going to be 13-9. She hasn't won. And how active has she been? She's been relatively active, but still, man, Andrea Lee just isn't cut for it anymore. People are hyping her up for a little bit, but I mean, 35 years old, there's not much you can do there. I think Miranda Maverick should get the win, but honestly, you never know. Anything can happen in these two divisions, right? Moving on to the next fight, we have Val Woodburn versus Oban Elliott. Now, I'm very excited to see Val Woodburn in because he just was fed to Bo Nickal, and Bo Nickal, of course, finished him very quickly. But the thing is, he didn't get a chance to really show what he's all about because if you take a look at anything he's done before the UFC, he's had his fair share of finishes, he's had a fair share of wins, but they were against competition that just isn't there, you know? So that's the problem. He got his first performance in the UFC, got fed to Bo Nickal. He was there to lose. So I'm actually really excited to see if he can put together a win, if he can do anything here. But he's taking on Oban Elliott, who is brand new to the UFC. You might as well consider, I don't know if you can't consider Woodburn brand new to the UFC. I'm just saying he hasn't really had any UFC experience, right? Now, Oban Elliott coming off fresh of the Contender Series after a very, very nice win. Now, there are a couple things in this Contender Series performance that I kind of took to note here because he showed very, very good technique when it came to the striking, but it was a little bit evident that this dude has a chin issue. He was rocked on multiple occasions, but luckily for him, his opponent had zero finishing instincts because literally anybody else on this planet would have gotten him out of there. But at the end of the day, he did display incredible heart to come back with a very, very strong third round after being dominated in the second round of that fight, which it's very good to see. So this guy, the technique is absolutely there, but when you have a guy who so evidently seems to have a chin issue, that always really makes me worry. Now, both of these guys have had really, really nice wins over competition that just isn't there. And you could argue that no matter what happens in this fight, because that still competition level isn't there. So it's a little bit tough to gauge how these guys exactly fit into the UFC. But, man, this is really, really tough, dude. This is really, really tough because you also have Val Woodburn who's moving down a division. That opens a whole nother can of worms in itself. This is a very, very tough fight to pick. In my opinion, this is one that you shouldn't be betting on unless you want to really put something into Val Woodburn, but he hasn't again showed anything. If you want to, it's tough, man. This is a very, very tough fight to pick. I'm leaning towards the 50-50 side of things here, but I did like the striking that I've seen from Oban Elliott, but then again, Val Woodburn does have his fair share of power, and Elliott has a little bit of a chin issue. I'm going to ever so slightly lean to Woodburn in this fight, but man, this is a fight that I'm staying away from, dude. Moving on to the next fight, we have Josh Quinlan taking on Danny Barlow, and guys, I am extremely excited for this fight because this matchmaking, whoever did the matchmaking for this one is incredible because you have Josh Quinlan, who is a very dangerous striker in himself, coming off of his first loss, by the way, which was a little bit surprising to a lot of people. In hindsight, like, there was a little bit, the fight was on short notice, so that's the problem, and it wasn't short notice on the part of Josh Quinlan, but things happen when you have such a big guy coming in like Trey Waters, right? But other than that, he's looked great. Been watching this dude in LFA, been watching him coming to the UFC. He is a great fighter. He is a very good fighter, Josh Quinlan. Very strong, prefers to strike, has the grappling to back it up, but he's taking on Danny Barlow, who we don't know exactly how his grappling level, speaking of grappling level, because this dude is a finisher. This dude is fast. This dude is powerful and oh so accurate. That's why I'm excited for this fight, because both guys have very real power. Both guys are very good strikers. Now, it is important to know Josh Quinlan has, while he only has 7 fights, he has fought much better competition than Danny Barlow, because Danny Barlow is just making his UFC debut after a great Contender Series performance. He looks great in the Contender Series. And if you look at his other fights, he's been doing more of the same. Very quick first round finishes, right? But Josh Quinlan, he's been in there. He's coming off his first loss, so that's always important to note. How is he going to bounce back from that? Is he going to get better? We don't really know. But if these two were to just strike, which I would imagine they will, I actually think Danny Barlow is a little bit more dangerous than Josh Quinlan, especially with such a big reach advantage. Because the dude, again, he is so fast, powerful, and accurate. Man, he should be able to use his reach to get a win here. He should be able to. But Josh Quinlan, if he opens the door to grapple here, which he can, but he usually doesn't, then we could see some problems for Danny Barlow because we haven't exactly seen that all too much, right? But other than that, I'm going to lean towards Danny Barlow in this pick, but just because, again, I think he is a little bit more dangerous on the feet, and this dude is a problem on the feet. He is a problem, and I'm very excited for this fight. The matchmaking is really good for this one. So I'm going to go with Danny Barlow, but I wouldn't be shocked if Josh Quinlan pulled this one off. Moving on to the next fight, again, we have Mingyang Zhang versus Brendson Ribeiro. Now, guys, when I say moving on, again, like, I'm talking about the UFC matchmaking, because this is another great matchup. Absolutely fantastic matchmaking, because you have both guys coming into the UFC. You have both guys who are so powerful, so dangerous, and so young, by the way. Both guys have had their fair share of success recently, and I'm very excited for this. Because from what we've seen outside of the UFC, and this is, I know, like, this is so early to say because they can come in to the UFC and just get absolutely steamrolled, right? We've seen that time and time again. But these guys are fairly experienced for where they're at right now, and they're coming into the light heavyweight division in the UFC, which honestly could use some new talent. And I really, oh man, I'm excited in particular for Mingyang Zhang because this guy has put together I can't remember off the top of my head, but a 9 or 10 fight win streak, and the vast majority of them are finishes. This dude is powerful. This dude kind of lives up to the name in Mountain Tiger. I'm very excited to see him perform. He is a big light heavyweight. He has power behind him. He's put together some absolutely beautiful wins. Just even look at his last 5 here. Look at his last 5. They are all finishes. They're all finishes. I'm excited to watch this guy fight, man, because he's coming in. He's only 25 years old. He has 16-6, but again, he's put together such a win streak that he's been actively improving. He's been one of those fighters that he's had a lot of a rocky road coming up, but he's been really putting together, so I'm excited to see him perform. And Brendson Ribeiro, now, he's not necessarily having the win streak at all, but he's had his fair share of losses. He had 5 losses of 15, but he's put together beautiful 3 finish streak coming to the UFC, and he had a very good performance in the Contender Series. I'm excited, man. I'm excited because you have both guys that are going to come in. Both guys are definitely going to want to strike with each other. The only problem is, I would imagine Mingyang Zhang would be a little bit more dangerous. Both guys have been finished before, but I would imagine it's going to be a striking match. But the Gorilla's 81-inch reach is really making me worry here. This is a tough fight to pick. This one's a little bit more of a gut feeling, honestly, but I like Mingyang Zhang in this one. I like the momentum that he's been on. I like the power that he carries, and I think I can only believe if he's taking on somebody that around the same level of competition that he has been taking on outside of the UFC, I would imagine he will continue to get a win. I cannot wait to see both of these guys. I believe there is serious potential for a future with them. I really do. So I'm very excited for this one, but again, a little bit tough to pick, but I am going to pick Mingyang Zhang to get the win here. Moving on to the next fight, we have the return of Rinya Nakamura taking on Carlos Vera. Now, this is an interesting fight because I'm still interested in where Rinya Nakamura belongs in the bantamweight division because, guys, there is so much hype on this guy. There really is, okay? But I'm just not feeling it. In saying that, though, he should absolutely win this fight. The UFC is absolutely feeding him another... I don't mean to be disrespectful, but he's a nobody, man. He's a nobody. He's a fighter. I know Carlos Vera's coming to the UFC. He's primarily a grappler who... I know he's put together 4 wins, okay? But even in these 11 wins, there's a lot of times where you see Carlos Vera just end up getting beat up, and then I'm like, oh my god, he won by submission, you know? So that is literally the only hope that he has in this fight. And I feel so bad saying that about some of these fighters, man, because it'd be cool to see him win. It'd be cool. I always enjoy seeing like a big underdog win, because right now, I don't know what it's at the moment, but recording this video, Tapology says that this is a minus 850. This makes sense, though, guys. Like, Rinya Nakamura is... A lot of people really do believe this could be one of the next big contenders at bantamweight. I don't believe that personally yet, but Rinya Nakamura, he's so big, he's so powerful. He has shown that he has steamrolled through everybody so far. Everybody. In betting-wise, this is certainly not one to touch, because I can already see people putting Rinya Nakamura in a parlay piece. I see why, but I don't know, man. I'm not feeling Rinya Nakamura yet. In saying that, though, again, he should absolutely win this fight. Carlos Vera's only hope to win this fight is to throw up some random submission. I understand that they are about the same height, they're about the same reach, but Rinya Nakamura is just so big, so imposing in there. And I would imagine he's going to do whatever he wants with Carlos Vera. In the bantamweight division, somebody coming into the UFC, making their debut at 36 years old on a card like this, I don't like it for Carlos Vera. I think Rinya Nakamura is absolutely going to get the win here. Moving on to the next fight, we have Rogerio de Lima taking on Justin Tafa. Now, guys, in my opinion, while we have seen a little bit of an all-round skill set from De Lima, in my opinion, this is going to be a striker versus a grappler matchup. We have Justin Tafa, who's so powerful and quite imposing on the feet. And you know what? Sometimes you look at him and you're like, okay, I don't know. He could be a little bit small, but then he just sizes up with these guys, knocks them out. It's crazy to me. I like watching Justin Tafa fight a lot. But Rogerio de Lima, while I did say this is a striker versus grappler matchup, he does possess a skill set everywhere, but I just think Justin Tafa is going to be that much better on the feet. He's coming off of a nice 3-fight win streak with a little bit of a no contest, but of course that fight got stopped really early, but then he got the win over Austin Lane. Rogerio de Lima was putting together a couple nice wins here over against Andrea Arlovsky and Waldo Cortez Acosta. In saying that, though, level of competition, not that great. But I mean, Justin Tafa, you can look at his wins here. Is it really anything better? It's just the state of the heavyweight division for you. These guys are better than their competition. But then Rogerio de Lima took on Derek Lewis, and Derek Lewis came out with a flying knee. How is that? Nobody saw that coming. Well, I mean, like, people could have seen Derek Lewis winning, but Derek Lewis all of a sudden was brought back to life, which was very strange. So he's coming off of a loss, and guys, I'm all over Justin Tafa on this one. I think even if Rogerio de Lima wants to take the fight to the ground, there is some point within these 3 rounds that Justin Tafa will catch him. He has serious power in his hands. He's only 30 years old, taking on a guy who's going to be 39. I understand you can get away with that age at heavyweight, but he's probably going to be slower. His chin's not going to be... Well, I mean, like, Justin Tafa could absolutely knock him out. That's what I mean by that. I don't see Rogerio de Lima winning this fight, besides it being one of those heavyweight fights where you just catch somebody, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think Justin Tafa is clearly the better striker here, and I believe he is going to knock out Rogerio de Lima in this fight. Moving on to the next fight, we have Amanda Lemos taking on Mackenzie Dern. Now, this is a tough fight because both girls are coming off of quite a poor performance, let me say. It's honestly, you could look at this one another fight like it's a grappler versus striker matchup, because both of these girls are certainly better than your typical WMMA fighter, but oh boy, Amanda Lemos put together 2 nice wins, right? Put together 2 nice wins against, okay, this, anybody could win. Michelle Waterson, anybody will beat at this point in her career, but Marina Rodriguez, she is aging, but it still is a pretty good performance, but then, oh boy. But here's the thing, though. She fought Weili Zhang. How much do you really want to take that into consideration? Because Weili does that to everybody. But Weili really dominated her. Bad. Now, Mackenzie Dern. Win-loss. A little surprising to see because Mackenzie Dern, like I said, is better, but I don't know if it's necessarily that surprising because it's the state of the division, right? So sometimes she wins, sometimes she loses. And here's the thing, because in this performance against Angela Hill, I was so wrong about Angela Hill, man. I thought she was putting stuff together. I thought she was becoming a better. I thought she was improving, but because Mackenzie Dern looked violent in this fight. Looked so violent in this fight. And I was like, okay, maybe Mackenzie Dern, maybe I've been underrating her this whole time, or maybe she's improving. But then we have the Jessica Andrade fight, and I was watching this fight, and I was like, that's the Mackenzie Dern I know, swinging like a child, slipping her own feet, and just honestly, she got cranked a bunch of times until she got finished. So she, in my opinion, I was changing my opinion on her because she's better than anybody, but then as soon as she fights somebody of any significance, she loses. I was changing that opinion stupidly when she fought Angela Hill. But then I'm back to thinking how I was against Mackenzie Dern. As soon as she takes on anybody of significance, she is going to lose. And Amanda Lemos is somebody of significance. The only problem here is you have somebody who is still in their prime and Mackenzie Dern taking on a 37-year-old almost. That's a little bit of an issue, but Amanda Lemos is very dangerous on the feet. Mackenzie Dern can always make something happening on the ground, but especially after that performance against Weili Zhang, but Weili would do that to anybody. I like Amanda Lemos a lot in this matchup. I am not high on Mackenzie Dern. You guys gotta take your simp glasses off and realize what Mackenzie Dern is. She swings like a child. She can't get the fight to the ground. Amanda Lemos is probably gonna knock her out. I don't know about that. Win. She's gonna win dominantly. I believe that, man. I believe that. I'm just not impressed from what I've seen about Mackenzie Dern, man. Amanda Lemos is going to come back and get a nice win. That's what I think is going to happen. My pick is going to be Amanda Lemos. Now, guys, apologies for putting a quick pause on the video, but I do want to say if you guys are interested in seeing the official bets that I will be placing every single Thursday or Friday before a card, typically for UFC, but sometimes I bet on LFA, One Championship, a couple other promotions, but I will be posting all the official bets I will be placing. I make a complete betting guide video. If you're interested, that's going to be coming out tomorrow, and you can see how I did last week for the bets, what I posted, if you want to see where I'm actually putting my money where my mouth is. I'm typically wildly in the positive. I'm typically playing it pretty safe, and I make a risky bet. I make that very well known that it's a risky bet. So if you're interested, guys, if you're interested, please come join the membership. It's very cheap compared to other channels, and if you want to tell anything, see where I'm betting, I'd really appreciate you supporting the channel. Now, guys, moving on to the main card, guys. This is one of the best main cards we have seen in a long time for a UFC card, let me tell you, man, because this is honestly, guys, I'm not even kidding, this is like UFC 300 level, to be honest with you. The fights, oh boy, oh my god, are they amazing. So we're starting off with Anthony Hernandez versus Roman Kopylov. It is important to note that Roman Kopylov took this on short notice, and that worries me a little bit. Now, this fight sucks, man, because it's such a good matchup, such guys with huge hype behind them. It's just unfortunate that one of these guys have to lose. That's where I'm at with this fight. But again, like we've talked about with a few fights here, this is clearly a grappler versus striker matchup. You have Anthony Hernandez, who is like Colby Covington with finishing abilities. That's typically how you see Anthony Hernandez described, and man, he's living up to it, man. He is absolutely living up to it. After his loss to Kevin Holland, which Kevin Holland can beat anybody with that power, right? He has come on and just absolutely dominated everybody in his path. And it's against good fighters too. It could be better, honestly. The competition could be better, but he's dominating these guys. The cardio is there. The hands are there. The takedowns are there. The pressure is there. This guy's like Merab or Colby Covington, but he finishes. He's attacking for submissions. He is an absolute pleasure to watch, but he's taking on Roman Kopylov, who is the complete opposite. This dude will strike your face off, and he has power behind it. He has been looking better and better every single time we see him. Now, something that is very important to note is that Anthony Hernandez has clearly taken on better competition and looked, I don't know if he looked better, because he's shown more that he's a dog in there, but Roman Kopylov, man, oh my god. He's just looked so good. This is just such a good matchup, man. I'm very excited for this. Now, like even the height and the reach are the same, man. Roman Kopylov is just exiting his prime, so that's something you can take a look at. But here's the thing, okay? I started changing my tune just a little bit on Roman Kopylov against the Josh Fremd fight, okay? He worried me a little bit for the first couple minutes of this fight. He looked undersized. He looked like he was getting tagged a little bit, but like after that, honestly, it was nothing but power, precision, dominance, the stuff you typically take, right? He's always attacking with something different. He is such a good striker, but he had a really good performance, okay? But he sometimes, just sometimes, he leaves himself open to get tagged when he doesn't need to. He's so good on the offense, but the defense I'm just not overly convinced about. That's all. That's where I'm at because, again, and I know that's stupid to say because he's so dangerous. I don't know if you guys are feeling the same way that I'm feeling about Roman Kopylov because he can beat anybody, but he is there to get hit, and he's there for the takedowns. He is just a little bit not there. The movement, that's what I'm trying to think about. Like, maybe the movement is where he lacks a little bit, but at the same time, he's so good, right? He's a I think it's a 4-time world champion, if not 3-time world champion in Russian hand-to-hand combat. So, like, this guy, when it comes to stand-up, is great, and I feel bad criticizing something about it, right? But I feel like Roman Kopylov is going to be there waiting to land his shot, and Anthony Hernandez is going to be in his face taking him down. That's what I feel like. Plus, you got to think about Roman Kopylov. Is he in shape? I know he's had a little bit more time than typical short notice fights to prepare for, but you're preparing for a guy in Anthony Hernandez who is as good as they come. I believe this guy could be champion one day, Anthony Hernandez. Same with Roman Kopylov. Great fight. It's a great fight, and I can't wait to watch it. I'm going to pick Anthony Hernandez because of the short notice and because of Roman Kopylov, and he could catch him. Don't get me wrong. I can see Anthony Hernandez going in for a takedown and eating a shin to the face. I'm not confident in my pick here, but I'm going to pick Anthony Hernandez. I think that it's more likely that he ends up finding a takedown because Roman Kopylov isn't exactly darting in and out too much. You know what I mean? So I'm going to pick Anthony Hernandez at like a 60% level of confidence over here. Very excited for this fight. I'm excited for this whole main card, guys. Moving on to the next fight, we have Merab Dvalishvili taking on Henry Cejudo, the return of two legends. Now, before we get into the breakdown, I think it is very important to note that Merab is coming off quite the injury. He had surgery. We don't know how he's been training, and that's going to affect my confidence level a little bit in this because when somebody's coming off of surgery, when somebody's coming back after such an injury, and I believe it was just a hand, I don't believe there was anything major wrong with it, but we know he's been off. We know he hasn't been training. Like, now he's obviously training, but I mean, like, Merab seems like the type of guy to always be in shape. All I'm saying is I question it a little bit, okay? That makes me worry when somebody's coming off of surgery. He's 33 years old right now, and Henry Cejudo, boy, 37 years old. Other than that, though, Merab Dvalishvili, guys, has been dominating the division. Has been dominating every single fight that he's in. Every single fight. And the Piotr Jan performance shocked me. I thought Jan would have the takedown defense. I thought Jan would expose him on the feet, but man, he didn't. He was too much for Piotr Jan to handle. It's weird to see Piotr Jan in such a vulnerable place. He was making him suffer in there. And that says something because, guys, I know people are getting off the Piotr Jan train, but I still believe he is one of the best fighters in the UFC. He's taken on Henry Cejudo, who, before his long layoff, was the double champion. He's beaten some of the best of the best. He beat Mighty Mouse. He beat TJ Dillashaw. He beat Mario Moraes. He beat Dominic Cruz. He's great. But of course, after his long layoff, he came back against Aljamain Sterling and lost a split decision. That fight was so close that if I was allowed to give fights a draw just because it was close, I would. Okay? So, Henry Cejudo come back after a long layoff. It looked like he was having a little bit of problems with ring rust at the beginning, but not to take away from the performance that he had, but I think that is something that did happen. Here's the problem. Henry Cejudo is 37 years old, competing in the bantamweight division against a guy in Merab Dvalishvili who will not let up. The question is, can Henry Cejudo keep up with the pace of Merab? If he can, Henry Cejudo should be a little bit better in the striking department. You have an Olympic gold champion in Henry Cejudo. Can he beat Merab in the takedowns? I don't think so. Henry's so good. Henry's so elusive. Henry's probably a better striker. But he's 37 years old, man. He's 37. I got to question exactly how hungry he is because Henry Cejudo has also been open and talking about how if he loses this, he's done for good. It's time to call it quits. Where's his mind at? And the other question is, how much has Merab been training? Because if Merab's typically always in shape, right, he has the cardio of like an absolute another level of a person. But maybe that'll change because of the surgery that he just went through. I don't know. There's a couple things here that are really making me go, I don't know. I think this fight's a lot closer than everybody's making it seem to be. I would not be shocked if Henry Cejudo won this fight because out of everybody in the bantamweight division, Henry Cejudo certainly has the skill set to beat Merab Dvalishvili. But I worry about his age. I worry about his cardio at this point. I worry about how much Henry Cejudo is really willing to get in there and get dirty with Merab. I really worry about his will to win. I don't know if the Henry Cejudo who dug deep against Demetrius Johnson is still there. I don't know. He very well could be. I just question it. That's all. Guys, I have to pick against the guy who is 37 years old, thinking about retirement, competing in the bantamweight division. Other than that, their skill levels are both so good. They're so good. Henry Cejudo was the double champion, right? I have to pick Merab Dvalishvili to win this fight. I have to, right? It seems like stupid not to pick him. And to be honest with you, I'm shocked that the betting odds are like this right now. I might take a look at that. I might consider throwing a bet on Merab just because the chances for those odds, not bad at all. Not bad at all. But the pick's going to be Merab, guys. He's probably, like, I have to think that he's going to go in there and make Henry suffer like he has for everybody else. I don't think Henry's going to finish him. And over the course of 3 rounds, Merab will probably drown him. Merab will probably do what Merab does. It's going to be sad to see because I'm a huge fan of Henry Cejudo, and I like Merab too. He's, especially with how he's been diving into meme culture lately. Very, very fun fight. I cannot wait to watch this one, but the pick is going to be Merab. Moving on to the featured fight of the card, we have another banger, that being Jeff Neal versus Ian Machado Gary. I'm so excited for this entire card, man. It's crazy because you have Jeff, like, there's beef here, there's everything here that you need, right? So, Jeff Neal, I think, and it's important to note, in his last 5, he has lost 3 of those fights. He is better than those 3 losses, okay? He is much better than those 3 losses. Take a look at, like, of course, he lost to Stephen Thompson, which, that happens. And again, it was 3 years ago. He's still improving. And Neil Magny can beat anybody, but he came back, won against Santiago Ponzinibbio, won against Vicente Luque, and a little bit of a shocking performance to a lot of people. And then he made Shavkat Rakhmonov look human. He looked human in this fight. He ended up getting finished, but man, it was a great fight. That's a great loss to have, to be honest with you. Now, Ian Machado Gary, 13-0, looking fantastic, looking crisp, coming off of the best performance of his whole career in Neil Magny. But the problem being, people are high on Ian Gary for having his performance because he put on a striking clinic. But what everybody forgets is that Neil Magny took this fight on short notice and he was inactive. He wasn't doing anything there. Takes away from the performance a little bit for me personally. But I was, man, ever since he fought Kenan Song, I was very convinced of Ian Gary because the question is, can he overcome adversity? He passed that test with flying colors here, and he's been getting better with each performance, man. He is so good at what he does. He's a very, very good striker. Shockingly has a shorter reach than he makes it seem because his movement's so good, his timing's so good. He's a great striker, but so is Jeff Neal. That's the problem. Now, this is obviously going to be a striking match. Jeff Neal can beat anybody. He has great power, great technique. Jeff Neal is a great fighter. But I think Ian Gary is just, when it comes to striking, and these guys are probably going to strike, I think he's on that little bit of next level. I think that Ian Gary, skill for skill, has more tools. He's going to be chopping up that leg. He's going to be moving in and out a little bit more while Jeff Neal tries to brawl. And I think this is going to look a little bit like the Stephen Thompson performance. I understand that Jeff Neal has improved since those 3 years, but I believe that performance is going to be similar. However, Ian Gary, I am very worried about. I'm very worried about him because this is the first time that Ian Gary, and you know what? He's had his fair share of haters. Don't get me wrong. This is the first time he's going to be fighting this. I was very worried about this the first time this was booked. This is the first time Ian Gary has the whole world against him. And it's not just, oh, I want Ian Gary to lose. It's the whole world laughing at him. It's to the point where he's going to be walking out with all these fans and they're going to be screaming, Ian Gary, you're cook. Oh my God, I've been with your wife. You know, all that type of stuff. That has to play with somebody at the press conference. I could only imagine he's going to get cooked. No matter what Ian Gary says, he's going to lose an argument, and this is new territory for him. So I would be shocked to believe if Ian Gary is totally okay in there. That could weigh on someone mentally very, very hugely. And these two have beef. I would imagine it's going to get brought up at the press conference, right? I would imagine so because Ian Gary wore Jeff Neal's mugshot and all that stuff. And I think this stuff matters. I think the mentality matters. What if Ian Gary isn't going in there because he is so hyped about people cheering for him, right? Now nobody's going to be cheering for him. Now everybody laughs at him. It's worse than people booing you and overcoming the booing adversity. People just don't respect him. That's all. That could be an issue. That could play with his performance. That could play with his timing. If all the fans are yelling stuff like, oh my God, Ian Gary, everybody in the world has slept with your wife, that could play on him, okay? If he gets past all of that and still puts on a clinic like he has been putting on, then I'll go, okay, you know what? That's fine. No matter what somebody says about him, Ian Machado Gary, he can go in there, he can have the performance of a lifetime, but I have not seen that yet, and that makes me worry, and that is exactly why I'm personally not going to be betting on this fight, but I do believe that Ian Gary is a little bit better than Jeff Neal, especially when it comes to striking on the feet. He has more momentum behind him, and how long's Jeff Neal been off for right now? He's been off for a little while, 11 months ago, so that's the thing. I just think Ian Gary, this is going to be a striking match, and I think Ian Gary will just be a little bit better in this matchup. I'm going to pick Ian Gary, but I'm worried about this one. Moving on to the co-main event that I still doubt is going to happen. We have Robert Whittaker taking on Paulo Costa. Guys, honestly, I will not be convinced that this fight is happening until I see Paulo Costa enter the octagon. His dude's elevated to John Jones level for me. I don't care. I know that last time actually wasn't his fault, but I'm not here to talk about that. We're breaking down the fight here. So Robert Whittaker, he's coming off. It's so weird to see two reds in Robert Whittaker's last 5, right? Because of course, he had the fight against Israel Adesanya, who a lot of people do believe that Robert Whittaker won. I personally thought that he lost that fight, but regardless, he had a very, very good performance there. It was a very close fight, but then he bounced back with a great, fantastic win over Marvin Vettori. But then the Dricus du Plessis fight. This was one of the most shocking things ever. Dricus du Plessis finished Robert Whittaker. Now, something is important to note is Robert Whittaker got finished finally, and I hate to say this about a guy who just got finished one time, right? But we don't see Robert Whittaker crumble the way that he did. You got a question at 33 years old, how much does Robert Whittaker have left? Because he has taken so much damage. He is such a fantastic fighter, guys. He is so good at what he does, but Robert Whittaker has taken so much damage. He's had so much fight time over the years. Is he finally going to crumble? We don't know. That's something that I'm personally taking into consideration. Now, Paulo Costa, on the other hand, his body can be in it, but his head is not in it. I'm on the team of people who just say that Paulo Costa just wants to be there to be famous at this point, because ever since the Israel Adesanya loss, the dude has been incredibly inactive. The dude, you have the crazy whole situation with Marvin Vettori where he didn't show up on weight and didn't care. And you know what? He didn't have a bad performance here, actually, but Marvin Vettori beat him, and Marvin Vettori is a dog and an animal that can go in there and really put it to you, but Marvin Vettori isn't nearly the best fighter. But then he bounced off back with a win against Luke Rockhold, which he had problems against Luke Rockhold, who the rest of the division at that point, Luke Rockhold's career, could beat. Paulo Costa, if we're talking about the Paulo Costa who beat Yoel Romero and Uriah Hall, this would be a different story. Paulo Costa has the power to do it. He has the technique to do it. He can do it. But the question is, has Paulo Costa been training? Is he going to show up to the fight? Does he care? I don't know the answer to those questions, and I believe the answer to those questions, if I had to assume, would be no. Robert Whittaker, on the other hand, still wants to put everything that he has into becoming a champion. He wants another fight with Israel Adesanya. He wants the rematch against Dricus du Plessis. He thinks that he's better than that. He's been very vocal about these things. He wants to prove to himself that he can still go in there and be champion. He is still just as hungry, and I do believe that. For that reason alone, I'm going to be picking Robert Whittaker in this fight. Robert Whittaker, but here's the thing, like, what if Robert Whittaker's chin is cracked? We don't know. That's always a possibility, right? We could see the start of the downfall of Robert Whittaker, but I don't think Paulo Costa at this point in his career can hang with the guys like Robert Whittaker, because Paulo Costa for so long, he relied on his big power and walking forward, kind of like Yoel Romero, to be honest with you, and we know what Robert Whittaker does to guys like Yoel Romero. He's just better. He's just way better. His movement's better, his technique's better, he can jab your face off, he'll kick you. Like, Robert Whittaker is just better. The only way Paulo Costa can win this fight is if he storms forward and does exactly what Dricus du Plessis did, which the 2018 Costa can do. I don't think the present Costa right now can do it. I think he's showing up for a paycheck. I think he's showing up so he doesn't get caught by the UFC. I don't even think he's going to show up. Robert Whittaker is going to be my pick, but after the DDP performance, I don't know why I didn't say Dricus. I'm tired, guys. I'm recording this at midnight. The pick's going to be Robert Whittaker. I just have some questions about it. That's all. And moving on to the main event of the evening, guys, we have Alexander Volkanovski taking on Ilia Topuria. Kind of like Robert Whittaker, to be honest with you. Alexander Volkanovski. It's weird to see 2 wins here. Or 2 losses, excuse me. It's very, very weird, but both of them being to Islam Makhachev. It very well is important to note, though, that Alexander Volkanovski took this fight on very, very short notice and was clearly not in shape. But his chin got cracked. That worries me like crazy, man. That worries me like crazy because I made a video about this a long time ago. I am so on the exact opinion of Lucas Tracy where Alexander Volkanovski is going to have a BJ Penn type of downfall. He's going to be on a huge losing streak because he's always going to be like, I need to believe in myself. I need to do good. And the downfall of Alexander Volkanovski is coming. I believe that. Is that now? We've seen guys with their chin cracked before and they've never recovered. It's possible. But for the sake of this breakdown, as of right now, let's assume that Alexander Volkanovski is the typical Alexander Volkanovski that we usually see. We know he's aging and the downfall is coming. He's looked great. Aside from that Islam fight, let's ignore that, okay? Let's ignore that because we'll talk a little bit more about that. Let's talk about Yair Rodriguez. Wasn't long ago. It was just 7 months ago, and he was just about to turn 35 years old. Still out of his prime. But the dude fights like he's in his prime. Yair Rodriguez was clearly the toughest opponent that he has ever taken on. The most dangerous opponent that he's ever taken on, and he made him look weak. Before that, he fought Islam Makhachev, went up in weight. I thought he won this fight, and then it's just the steamroll that Alexander Volkanovski has been his whole career. He's so good, in my opinion, before the Islam Makhachev loss. He was the greatest fighter of all time, and he still could be. But he's taking on Elliott Topuria, who has been looking nothing but fantastic in these 14 wins, and he's looking better every single time that we see him, particularly against Josh Emmett. Now, I know Josh Emmett is not a good fighter like everybody. You see some people hyping up Josh Emmett to be this crazy great guy. I don't think that's the case. I think Josh Emmett is on the weaker side of the division. All he has is an overhand. But oh boy, was he putting on the 10-7s there. Oh boy, I don't remember actually if the scorecards actually gave a 10-7, but I gave him a 10-7 personally. Elliott Topuria is so good. He is very worthy of a title shot right now. Now, like I said, if Alexander Volkanovski, if we erase that last loss, I'd be picking him all day. I'd go, hey, this is the GOAT. Elliott Topuria has nothing for him. And how often do you see this, by the way? Take a look at this. The height and reach are very similar. Alexander Volkanovski, of course, has weirdly long arms for his size. But I know that's probably... Here's the thing. So Alexander Volkanovski isn't going to be undersized like he usually is. I know Ilya is powerful. I know he's dangerous, okay? Alexander is probably, again, assuming that this is the Alexander Volkanovski before the Islam Makhachev fight, I think he would steamroll Elliott Topuria. Ilya's coming in overly confident off of wins that haven't exactly aged well, and he's been dominating these guys, right? But take a look at these guys that he's fought. Nothing too special here. Nothing too special. But the problem is he's been absolutely steamrolling these guys like Alexander Volkanovski's been doing to his opponents. I think Elliott Topuria is too heavy on his front leg. Alexander Volkanovski is going to chop it down. Alexander Volkanovski is going to use his reach perfectly and piece up Elliott Topuria. And what happens when Elliott Topuria starts being on the receiving end of adversity? We have no idea. Yeah, you know what? He's had little bits and moments in these fights, but not Alexander Volkanovski level of being beaten down. That's a different story when Alexander Volkanovski is piecing your face off. The only chance that Elliott Topuria has, in my opinion, is if Alexander Volkanovski is now on the decline because of that first loss. If that loss aged him, if his age is finally coming into play, if his chin isn't there, if he can get hurt. That's the only chance that I give him. And that's a very, very huge possibility because Islam Makhachev might have kickstarted the downfall and aging of Alexander Volkanovski. Very possible. Okay? Other than that, I think Alexander Volkanovski is just better. I think he's better. Ilya is coming in way too confident. I know he's hyping himself up, but man, what happens when you're the nail? We just saw this with Joe Pyfer coming in like he was untouchable. Hands down, coming in. I know Ilya won't put his hands down, but what happens when he starts being the nail? And Alex is not the guy you want to be the nail about. I think Alexander Volkanovski is just better. He's fought better opponents. He has the experience. He has really lived up to the name the great. And I wholeheartedly believe he is one of the greatest fighters to ever walk the face of the planet. In history. I don't know about the greatest of all time, but he is certainly in the conversation for me no matter what happens here. But the problem is, I don't know if the downfall has started. It's nothing new that you've heard, but I think this is a very simple fight to break down in my opinion. Ilya is so good, but he's not Alexander Volkanovski good. And I don't think there will ever be another Alexander Volkanovski. The question is, has the downfall started? I hope not. I hope Alexander Volkanovski wins. I'm a huge fan of his, but oh boy. The pick is going to be Alexander Volkanovski with a Low level of confidence, unfortunately. With that being said, though, guys, that puts an end to the full card breakdown and prediction video. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for being here. I actually am going to be starting to go live on this channel. If you're interested, come down. We'll break down the fight together. I would love to talk about it with you guys. Love to talk about chat, so look out for that. Look out for that. I'm going to be live streaming this week. I'm very excited to do that, guys. Let me know what your picks will be down below. Thank you so much for watching. While you were here, check out one of the videos on the screen right here. Oh, my God. I forgot my camera tracks me now, so I can't exactly put that on the side of the screen. Yes, I can. There we go. Thanks for coming, guys. Take care.